Just give me one moment.
want a
So I want to hand you so that we can all hear a microphone. Musicians are on today.
Do you want me to repeat the question until we get the mics, or?
Yeah, just I think we're okay.
Okay, we'll start in the back.
Testing. No. It's working? No? Testing?
Oh, yeah, okay.
Okay. If you have a question, just please raise your hand. Can you pass the mic?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, there's
And
someone behind you. Sorry.
speak directly into the mic itself as close as possible.
I'm and I'm very much from this material, but I'm suffering from rheumatoid arthritis, and I'm trying to figure out what emotions are bothering. I know that it's not at a physical level, it's at certain other level, but I'm unable to figure out. So how can I find out what emotions, what is bothering me?
Yeah, so, you know, again, there are all these layers. We look at mind, body, spirit when we look at everyone. So there, you know, again, looking at physical factors, which maybe you have, you know, like food and all that. I would definitely look at, you know, sometimes just cleansing, or maybe you've done some cleansing or panchakarma.
I go to India twice a year and stay there in Ayurvedic Center for
And
months.
do cleansing, yeah. So like you said, you know, you're addressing those physical things, you know, and maybe you're examining your emotional body, and you know, and you're like, I feel pretty, you know, in bliss, and I feel like I'm not holding on to anything. Typically autoimmune, like from an Ayurvedic perspective, we're looking at inflammation. Autoimmune is more pitta type emotions, so, you know, guilt, maybe, you know, resentment, judgments, you know, and again, if you don't feel like that's resonating, or, you know, there's nothing in there, then again, sometimes, again, this is where the spiritual perspective is important to have, that we don't necessarily have in Western medicine, but, you know, sometimes there are karmic reasons, you know, that we experience things in our lives, and that's where, you know, the more, again, we can just be in acceptance, or, you know, set intentions and try to shift that through spiritual practice. You know, that sometimes, again, I do see people when I'm like, this seems like it's some sort of karmic, you know, thing, and especially the more genetically it is, then I find the more karmic it is. So I don't know if you have family history of autoimmune diseases or anything, but yeah, and then a lot of it again is collective, you know, collective karma. So we see these epidemics of autoimmune diseases, you know, and again, because we're, you know, part of a bigger system, sometimes we're reflecting that collective karma too. So like cancers and different things. So we have to sometimes give it that perspective.
So what do you suggest?
You know, typically what we would do is
I
just,
feel, based on my analysis, I'm struggling with this for last 15 years. And I was not accepting allopathic medicine, so I was trying all these different Ayurvedic way, and I studied in a Gurukul, so I'm familiar with all this system. I meditate, I do pranayama, I do yoga, I live in a very fulfilling family, like 4 generations live together. We have so much love and everything. I don't feel like I'm lacking anything. And I'm very positive and happy person also. I taught Hindi for 10 years, so I feel that I have, like everything I have.
so sometimes again, this is where we have to go into just acceptance and, you know, do the best we can, you know.
So I accepted it, and I came to the conclusion that this is karmic. So what do I do for that karmic?
Yeah, acceptance, yeah, and you know, just again, that's, we accept our karma to some degree, we can try to transform it, but again, if it's karmic, sometimes, you know, we have to just be in a place of acceptance.
Can we shorten it somehow?
Because again, sometimes, because sometimes also, you know, we talk about like having good health and perfect health, and when things are flowing, we're healthy, but again, karma's different, you know, and so I don't always tell people to expect, again, the expectation, I don't always tell people to expect when you do these things, you will be like, you know, be able to do gymnastics or whatever. Again, it's like whatever is happening is going to be exactly what's supposed to be happening. And again, it's if it's karmic, it's, again, that's where we just accept, and you know, you're doing all of the right things, so at least you know, have that already good practices, because otherwise you may be even worse off than you are, knowing how destructive rheumatoid arthritis can be, you know.
This is somewhat related. Is it on?
It's on.
I liked a lot what you were talking about, that the emotions of the day, of the hour, of the month can come from our thoughts.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, you can go from there and you can make an easy jump to suggest that maybe if I change my thoughts in the midst of a bad emotion, I can change that emotion. So my question related to that is, how do you have a similar impact, if it's at all possible, with, and the phrase you use I like, with the mind's stored emotions? So let's say I've got 70 years of stored emotions, many of which are not pleasant ones.
Right.
How do you even begin to address that process? You don't
Yes.
change your thought to do it.
Right, and that's where a lot of the tools, like, you know, we store, knowing that we store emotions in that energy body is, you know, working with, you know, yoga, pranayama. Sometimes, you know, again, in the, you know, there's all kinds of energy healing. We do prana healing at the center, which is sort of, you know, tries to cleanse, you know, sometimes you have to seek out people that do more energy type work, energy healing, because, you know, those stories are really stuck. So there's different types of energy healing. You know, again, I was mentioning tapping and somatic body work to like kind of release emotions that are stored up in the body, cleansing, you know, so there's many, many different tools. So often, you know, sometimes not necessary, you know, again, the tools looking at the thoughts are one way. Sometimes we need to let that go and not be in the mind layer, and that's where I find the body work too. Ayurvedic massage can be very powerful at, we see people have emotional release quite a bit, because a lot of that is about opening up the energy channels.
And a quick follow-up, where you're talking about meditation, which I've always been a big believer in, even though I admit that I'm a poor practitioner. When I'm at work, for example, and you get really chewed out by a boss or a supervisor, and you think he's entirely unfair, or she's unfair, it exacts a price. I cannot sit down, close the door, take a deep breath, and meditate it away. It won't work. Meditation is useless.
Right.
But what you talked about was to be the witness in a case like that, and I would suggest the two might go hand in hand. To be the witness first, take the first 20 minutes just to be a witness. What happened, you know?
Right.
And look at it. How did I get there?
And the advantage actually to meditation, you're right, isn't in the moment. It's having a daily practice that over time you'll notice you know, you start to be the witness better and better and better, and then you can do something with that experience that's easier than, you know, that reaction that comes in. So that's where, again, doing the daily practices, and that's why I do pranayama twice a day, every day, especially at the end of the day.
How much time in a regular life?
I mean,
you should spend?
Yeah, I mean, I try to tell people, and some of the research has suggested at least 5 minutes twice a day, which isn't a lot. Obviously, in yoga traditions, you can do 2 hours of pranayama, you know, but, you know, even especially at the end of the day, because then you're letting go of all the experiences of the day, that emotional energy, so that again, day to day to day, it's not carrying over to like an explosion. You know, so that's something that I've started doing like really just in the last 4 or 5 years, and I've noticed those things, like something can happen, and you might still have an irritating thought or a like frustration or a, you know, whatever, but again, that urge to react to it starts to go away a little bit more. Yeah.
Good discussion. Thank you.
Can I, before you start, can I add something to what he just, I'm sorry. I think one of the things that I think he mentioned was how do I deal with a person who is really so bossy and so obnoxious and so, I mean, you know, we all encounter
Absolutely, yeah.
every day. I think the answer is this, which is similar to the exercise. Like when you go for a walk and you do exercise, the science tells you, has proven that the benefit of exercise lasts anywhere from 10 hours to 15 hours, 18 hours. Really, I mean, this is already proven, okay? So the same way, the benefit of the meditation, really, when you meditate either in the morning or in the evening, that will have an effect on you the next day when that obnoxious boss, a male or a female, really, that person will not be able to affect you as much.
Absolutely.
Really, I mean, I think the effect
That's
of
what
we
happens,
do,
yeah.
the awareness that we do, it lasts, it doesn't go away.
Yeah, and then again, a lot of the science around meditation is how things change in the brain, how they change in the physical body, so that it's a sustained change then. But it has to be, somewhat regular practice. And again, oftentimes what I do is, I just, again, try to look at it from the eyes of consciousness, like, and I just, sometimes they're going on and on and on, and you just focus on your heart and you think compassion. Like, compassion is one of my favorite ones when I'm dealing with somebody, because that person's clearly very out of balance, right? And so, like, one thing I can do is just send them compassion, not expecting that this situation's going to change, not expecting that anything, but I feel better, and I feel like, again, at some level I'm sending them compassion, and that's what they need, and so.
Yeah.
We have just begun to use compassion in medicine now.
Yeah,
Just in
exactly.
last few years now.
Can I mention something?
Yeah, we can take her question first with the
Yeah.
microphone, yeah.
I think the answer is patience today.
Yeah.
I've been overstepped 4 times, but that's all right.
Yeah, we got you, yeah.
Okay, I wanted to ask in relation to the gentleman's question about stored emotions.
Uh-huh.
And I had the question, but I wanted to put it a little bit differently, because even stored emotions to me implies that if you scanned very quickly, you could maybe find that thought. Sometimes it seems that no matter how much work you do over a practice over years, there is either a recurring pattern of thought that you can't put a language on, or you can't put a story around it. So I'm just wondering, in that case, do you have recommendations for dealing with it?
Yeah, again, sometimes just feeling where you feel it in the body, putting attention there, and again, using prana. That's one of my favorite practices, is just doing breathing into that area, because, again, in the Vedic, yogic and Ayurvedic philosophy, that there's some stuck energy there, and so if, as much as you can move that through yoga, exercise, many different ways to unclog those energy channels, and also sometimes going to people, again, who are energy workers. Like in medicine too, we're studying healing touch, hands-on healing. Again, there's pranic healing. There's many different forms of energy work, acupuncture, etc., that work in the energy body. And so it sometimes, and often, it's better not to know the story, right? Because then we get caught up in it sometimes. And then again, just recognizing that that's probably a representation of some deep karmic wound, something. Mm-hmm.
And the last question I have is, you talk about witnessing, which I am aware of, and I have been working on that for quite a while. But it seems that when it gets to fear parts, which are lodged in, in the liver, gallbladder area there, the fear prevents the witnessing from happening sometimes. So do you have any idea of how to continue to witness without violating the minds, in a sense? I don't know how to explain that, but.
I mean, again, sometimes we would work with root chakra, because that fear is usually some constriction there, grounding, because fear is usually, again, like we look at it from all these different perspectives, like some vata imbalance, so like walking on the ground, feeling grounded, doing some grounding breathing, and again, oftentimes, even in science and genomics, epigenetics, they're finding some as ancestral karma, right? So like societies that have been traumatized, you see this even in animal models go 4, 5, 6, 7 generations down. So it may not even be, again, you may not know what the story is or what it is, but it's still, again, that's our opportunity in this life, is to do the best we can with shifting this karmic energy, and there's a lot of it, right? So, and again, we're carrying the karma of, a millennia of trauma as humans. So some of it is some of that too.
I read a book, Perfect Health, last week.
Uh-huh.
So this is coincidental, you are speaking today. When I read all these patients he treated, and I was just so drawn by that, and I have a back problem. It's a professional problem. And then I got to the doshas, and I said, okay, this is the help, this is the hope. Now I can find out my dosha. And I am 3 dosha type, and then he says this is really rare. And basically for the rest of the book does not apply to me anymore, because you're either 1 dosha or 2 dosha, right? Doesn't talk about 3 doshas. So,
Well, and, you know, one thing to consider, we have all of those, because we're all made of space, air, fire, water, earth,
Yes,
so we have
right.
all of them in us. So what we usually do with those, you know, that type just means you have equal amounts of all of those elements. So we would look at what's the most out of balance at this moment in time and use practices for that. So whichever one you felt like that seems the most out of balance, I'm gonna do those balancing treatments for that dosha right now. And then knowing that it can change, you know, the doshas are constantly changing.
I think the lower hanging fruit is the diet. So if I get my diet right, then probably that would do quite a bit.
Yeah. So then usually we look at the physical body, and again, you can look at the characteristics of what each of those look like out of balance and decide which you have the most symptoms of, and then
Right.
focus your diet on balancing that one.
Now, so then I look up your website, I was hoping to get some help. The retreats are so expensive. I'm sure they're worth it.
Yeah,
But-
I would say so. You know, that's me.
I still need to come up with the money first. So how can I find out?
Well, there are many, you know, now we're moving a lot online, so there's a lot of good online programs, so it makes it a little more accessible to people, so you don't have to physically come, but, you know, a lot of the dosha information and, you know, other information is available also with, you know, online programs, which, again, are more affordable. You know, we also do, you know, scholarship programs, so sometimes I'll tell people, look, just, you know, submit to, I think it's scholarships@chopra.com. And so, you know, a certain number of people per event, you know, can just come.
So I can find out, it does say that it's better to talk to one of you to find out my dosha.
Sometimes
So
if it's
online-
confusing, that can help, or to find a practitioner, you know, that can help you kind of sort all that out.
So is there a way to get it online, or, I mean, I think taking a retreat is the ultimate, but before I get there,
Right,
is there
yeah,
some parts, find out my dosha and find out the right diet for me?
Yeah,
And
so,
maintaining it, that's the big question. The diet is actually not hard at all, but we live in a society, it's all about going to the gym to get more muscles, get more proteins.
yeah,
It's just, it's a whole different lifestyle.
yeah, exactly, yeah.
Which
So
actually
you
I
definitely
believe-
need, yeah, like just someone one-on-one, and that's where it's helpful to work
Ah.
with somebody who can, you know, really help to focus on, okay, just start with these things, you know, and that, you know, is best for you. And we do, you know, we do one-on-one consultations.
Oh,
We
good.
also have teachers that have certified through our and there are many that have certified in Ayurveda through various schools that we have, that are around the San Diego area. So sometimes if you just start searching, you can find people that, you know, are trained in Ayurvedic lifestyle and nutrition, that, you know, can do a consultation also, yeah.
Good, thank you.
Yeah.
Anybody else questions?
We actually have an amazing community in San Diego for like, you know, Ayurveda and, you know, just integrative approaches to health, so, yeah.
I think he wants to talk too.
No, no, that's fine.
I went to your
Do that.
website and all I saw were like the retreats
Mhm.
and it seemed like it was just a spa. And I was thinking, is there another area of the site or another site where it?
Yeah, if you go to the center itself, then in the drop down, it talks about, like, we do have, you know, our massage treatments, the spa services, so people can come just for individual Ayurvedic treatments. And then the medical consultations, it's under center, because that's the actual physical center and the services we have there.
Yeah, and I was wondering, do you have other events like lectures or?
We do have, again, we advertise on Meetup as well, they're called Conscious Living Sessions on Sundays. So we, you know, have people come that are doing all different things, like in yoga or music or lecture style of, you know, people in the sort of mind, body, spirit world. Yeah, so they're called Conscious Living Sessions.
I'll
And
look for that. Do you have anything like an email list to subscribe to get notice of events or anything like that?
I'm sure that
They
we do.
You go to the Chopra website.
I'm sure that we do, yeah.
That's not a problem.
I just need to keep looking.
No, just go there, there's a, they have a, subscribe to their email, and you'll get like.
Oh, yeah, subscribe to your email,
Per
yeah.
week, so.
I know, I've heard complaints, we send out a lot of emails.
So many.
I don't even open most of them, but.
Leela had a
Thank
question.
you,
Oh, yeah.
thank you so much,
Yes, yes.
Dr. Patel. A lot of what you talked about has worked imperfectly, but it has worked in my life.
Mm-hmm.
I never thought I'd get to be this advanced age,
She's,
still functioning mentally and physically.
She's 95 years old,
If it wasn't for
drives 1
This-
hour to get here. By
If
herself.
Please tell
He is.
When I read your topic, transcending emotion, what it meant to me is getting beyond emotion, and I'm figuring, how is that possible? It's a built-in part of us. How do we deal?
Well, and again, this is, I think, for a normal human who's a householder in the world, we're dealing with our emotions. We're witnessing them, we're shifting them, we're trying to release them. We have daily practices. Transcending them, again, comes from a vigorous meditation practice, perhaps people that have to not be a householder in the world. But again, I like to talk about this so we understand what the potential that we all have is. But, we do have jobs and families, and as being human and in the world, we're going to have emotions.
Just living in this world is a challenge.
Yes, it is.
And having come through all the roles that daughter, wife, mother, worker,
All those roles have
we all
responsibilities.
experience,
And we say, being human isn't for the weak at heart, that's for sure.
I would be interested in your comment about what the Dalai Lama is involved in. He's got this thing going that he's very involved in worldwide, Call to Care, which is social and emotional learning for little kids. Do you think that's possible to re-educate ourselves, to give us tools from when we're very little to stop seeking stuffing and violence and all of that we don't know anything about?
I think there's a huge potential there because, again, a lot of what happens as adults are things that we didn't know what to do with when we were kids. So the younger we can start, the better. So I'm really a fan of all of those programs that, start from a young age, And, and again, teaching parents and adults, the idea is because, then we say to bring this to your families, bring this to your children, your grandchildren, and the younger you can start, then the less we start to store up all of these emotions. Yeah, so I think there's a lot of potential to start with.
Somebody want this?
Anybody else?
A real quick 10-second question. Just a 10-second question. You mentioned about sending compassion from you to, let's say, an unkind boss. I know it helps you. Do you, in your belief system, believe that it also helps the other person?
100%, yeah. And I think a lot of it, as that convinced me, was looking at the heart math research on this, the idea of social coherence. And they've actually done more research where, again, I just show you the one picture, but they've had people who, were practiced at positive emotion, focusing on your heart, entering situations, and they've studied schools systems, they've studied workplaces, and, over time, and you see environments start to shift.
So just sending love helps.
Yeah, love, compassion, forgiveness is a big one, gratitude, and again, when you come from that state of being, of those spiritual emotions, it really doesn't matter which one it is. I mean, to some degree it can if you're working on forgiving someone, or like I said, I like compassion, but it's really just all of those things create this electromagnetic field around you that influence other people around you.
Can you do a long distance?
Absolutely, yeah. And so people who connect, and this is where it gets a little woo-woo, but of course we're a spiritual community, but yeah, when you connect non-locally, so this is where distance healing and things, again, when you connect in the non-local plane, there's no space or time, so you could connect anywhere and send a loving intention or energy. And there are many, many studies that look at this non-local communication between twins, between mothers and children, people who are very closely connected, or, some studies on like healers who say they can do distant healing. Again, I think that takes a lot more if you're not as closely emotionally connected with someone, but many studies on, this idea of non-local communication. And
Thank you.
Yeah.
Another question here.
So I have a follow-up. I have a follow-up question to this gentleman's regarding unreasonable boss. Excuse me. So if your boss engages you and because say you didn't follow through on something you said you would, and you acknowledge and say that you will correct it, and the boss keeps hammering you for maybe still that, or just other things, one after another, or you've taken an action based on what your current knowledge was, and the boss makes you aware in the moment when she's engaging you that a different rule has been put in place, and no one communicated it to you, and you try to acknowledge and just move forward, and they keep going,
So what
do
I,
you have any
yeah.
other suggestions?
So, you know,
other
again-
than- Or is it all sending compassion and love, is that?
That's,
still the
that's
best?
definitely, you know, you need to sort of witness your emotions around it and deal, you know, like, again, is it triggering something in you, like, I'm not good enough, you know, I should have done that better, you know, those are things you can sort of, you know, give yourself self-acceptance and, you know, however, there are toxic work situations, right, and so I think of it as like living next to a toxic dump. You can try all the, you know, healthy food, or you can try to do everything you can, but, you know, again, and I'm not necessarily, I don't outright say, you know, you should leave that job, although sometimes as you become more conscious and you realize this is a toxic work environment, this isn't where I want to be, then that sometimes gives people courage to make changes, because sometimes you need to create space, and that uncertainty is fear, right? Ego will be like, oh my god, but what am I going to do? I need to have money, and sometimes that is the case, for sure, but, you know, so sometimes I'll just recognizing this is a toxic situation. I can try all these things, these tools that I have. I can come home at the end of the day and do this, but recognizing again, what's your environment like and how is that impacting you? Sometimes, again, difficult decisions need to be made, you know, to remove yourself from a toxic situation, because there are many of them out there. And, you know, medicine is one that, you know, could be considered quite toxic now. And so, you know, I not knowing what I was going to do, did make some difficult decisions. Again, I went through a lot of that ego stuff. What will people think? You know, who am I if I don't do this? This is what I always thought I was going to do. To have enough money, you know. So, you know, and again, some of those things need to be worked through. But, and my sister too, she was in a very toxic work situation. Her boss was similar. And, you know, again, she made it as long as she could, and then decided that this is too toxic, you know, for my health. And made a change and found a much better job that she wouldn't have imagined she would have had she stayed, you know, in a little bit of a fear mode, you know. But again, you know, that being said, I don't take lightly the fact that sometimes it's not so easy to change jobs. But you know, again, you know, sometimes change isn't easy, but it's necessary, you know.
That's true, and, you know, the fear, I had an interview from my previous job for a long time, so I had a lot of fear around interviewing, and it took me quite a few months to get the job I have. And things were going fairly well until this new team lead came in for our team, and everything.
Yeah, sometimes it's very toxic. And again, you can do the best you can to consciously communicate and, you know, try to not hold any sort of, you know, like do some practices for sure at the end of your day when you get home, and then ultimately asking, you know, putting intentions. We work a lot with intentions, like putting intentions out there, and, you know, I'd like to, you know, find a job that, you know, it doesn't have such a toxic work environment. Let it go, meditate, you know, and then sometimes surprisingly things start to show up and shift also. But,
Two quick questions. Let's go ahead, you and then you.
This integrative medicine community or Ayurvedic practitioners here, or Chopra Center, are we doing something where these things can be paid by Medicare?
yeah, I mean, that's part of it. There are people working toward it. It's a difficult, ego-driven system to shift, right? There's a lot of fear. It works the way it works, you know, compensation, you know, all these, you know, systems that have been in place for a couple of decades. It's completely dysfunctional. So, but it's been a hard thing to shift, but it's shifting. They're definitely compared to 20 years ago. And some of it has to do with the science. So like, you know, we participate in studies, UCSD, you know, many places, Irvine, they have a big integrative medicine department now. So more and more science and studies that validate the practice of integrative healthcare. Then, you know, and again, we're going to be forced in a monetary sense. We can't keep doing what we're doing in medicine now. So, we're on the forefront of this wave of change, I think, in medicine. But, you know, like all change, it's coming slowly. But I definitely think it's moving in a positive direction. I'm very hopeful. I think in 20 years, medicine will be much different than it is now. Because some programs Medicare is already covering, like Dean Ornish's program. You know, that is a holistic, you know, and he incorporated meditation, yoga.
Which kind of program?
Dean Ornish, he worked on heart disease, so reversal of heart disease using vegetarian diet, meditation, yoga, stress management is what he called it, but it was meditation, yoga, group support, meaning finding loving people, you know, in group support services, and exercise. So that program people can start to implement in their facilities, and Medicare will pay for it. Again, that's, you know, just sort of a lot of, not every hospital system will have it, but
And what is it called?
it's, I'm not sure what it's called, but it's the Dean Ornish reversal of heart disease, basically.
Actually, Dean Ornish started the program called integrative medicine, and when he came here in '93, he was helpful in launching the program at Scripps Clinic, which is called integrative medicine. It talks about something other than the regular medicines that we take. So Dean Ornish, he helped launch 8 centers throughout the country. And I can give you the last name of the person.
Okay, last question.
Yes.
We gotta wrap it up here.
I was wondering about the, I think, what is it called, circadian rhythm?
Circadian,
Circadian? Okay, so is it different for different doshas? Because I like to get up really early in the morning and I'm wide awake, I'm ready to go, and I feel amazing.
For sure,
My dreams are amazing, and then I have that energy, but some of my friends say don't bother me until like 10 o'clock, or they don't wake up that easily, and they like to stay up really late, and I like to go to bed really early. So is it different for different?
It definitely is, you know, so, you know, and also it depends again on that, the different doshas cycle through, because these are just descriptions of qualities, you know, that show up in us, but also qualities of the day. After 6 o'clock, it does get it's a little, you know, the morning time is a little sluggish. It's harder to get going. So sometimes people notice when they sleep in, even an hour or two more, they still feel sluggish. A lot of it is not going to bed at the right time, right? So, you know, people want to stay up, you know, sleep in because they're not aligning themselves with an earlier bedtime, which is more healthy, you know, and of course a lot of the sleep researchers are finding that, and it again correlates very strongly with what the Ayurveda clock would say, being in bed by 10:30, and then waking up by before 6 o'clock, because you're taking advantage of that vata time where there is a little bit more, you know, mental activity and activity. So if you wake up before 6, we're taking advantage of that vata energy in the environment, and we're sleeping in, we're starting to get a little more sluggish. So yeah, it's a very interesting, you know, area, and people, again, there's a lot of science around that circadian rhythm. And again, people sometimes try to push it and say, well, I'm fine, I only need 4 hours of sleep, or I've been going to bed late for my whole life and I'm fine. They're not, you know, because again, when you look at the physiology, we know that physiologically you're missing out on detox time, you know, between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. And then emotional processing time is happening between, you know, we have more dream sleep during 2 a.m. and 6 a.m. And so you want to take advantage of that full, you know, sleep time, because there's different things happening at different times of the night that are good for our health, you know. And so, yeah, as humans, we really try to, you know, trick Mother Nature, but, you know, we're finding it's not, you know, it catches up to us. Yeah, and it is very dependent on the doshas as well, yeah.
Well, I think what an extraordinary day we had. Let's just give a hand for as you're getting the, I mean, what an extraordinary presentation. What you heard is kind of like the summarization of 1 year of Deepak Chopra's like studies, that it was like a summary of all the different things, events that I've attended.
That's why I was telling you for the last week, I'm like, how do I get this all condensed?
So you just have to sort of, over time, you'll start to get things. But it was a lot of information. And she did such a great job on connecting everything together. So she just worked on this just for us. This is a unique presentation. It's really a dedication out of love. And she really has this enthusiasm to share whatever she's getting, the knowledge that they've attained. The Chopra Center is doing a lot of great work. What they're doing, I find one of the things they're doing also is research to validate all the things that we're talking about yoga. We're talking about all these things, but is there data to support what we're talking about? And they're doing this intensive research to show that there is scientific evidence behind what you're doing. And so we don't know sometimes the mudras, these pranayamas, the different ways we're in yoga postures, but they're talking about the scientific evidence that yes, these do work. So it's amazing. And there are things that called perfect health, perfect health programs that you can go for 6 days, 10 days, and they have like 2 talks per day. They have massages, and they have an Ayurvedic diet, and it's a way to cleanse yourself. And I think also the hint that there's no quick fix. Whatever you're looking for, Ayurveda is not about quick fix.
Yeah.
It's about lifestyle change. So there was an example, as an analogy, this one person's like, how many lives do I have to go before I get liberation? And there was this tree with maybe 3 leaves on it, and the guru said, that many leaves. He goes, that many lives? Oh my gosh, that's so many. Right? And then another person was there and said, how many lives do I have to go till I get liberation? And the guru showed him this tree which had all these leaves, it's full of leaves. And there's only that many? And he was so joyful. And in the joy, as he started, all the leaves came off. Okay? So sometimes it's just a matter of having Swami Vivekananda says, once you have the goal in sight, don't worry about the ends. Focus on the means, and the ends will happen in themselves. We don't know in what way, how our lives will unfold, but if you just focus on what you have to do now, then things will just work out themselves. So thank you so much, Dr. Patel. And next week we do have a lecture. It is Easter Sunday service. Swami Mahayogananda is coming from Hollywood, and he's going to give a talk on, I believe it's death and reincarnation. From death to immortality. And in that, he does talk about the process of dying and also about reincarnation. And Anita Murji, remember? Morjani, she came and spoke with you. I think he refers to her in this talk also about the near-death experiences. It's a wonderful talk. It got a lot of YouTube hits. So if you hear it's 11 o'clock Sunday next week. Okay. Dr. Patel, and so if you'd like to, maybe you can just stand by the door outside and just greet everybody if you want. So we'll just close off with a chant as we normally do. You know the chant? You can just chant along. Last page, we'll just do this chant here. The second chant on your chants. So what we normally begin with the chant and end with the chant, and everything that in between is offered to the divine. We call it the spiritual sandwich. Think of God in the beginning, think of God in the end, and everything else is offered. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavaditamatsu Mavid Vishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May the infinite reality protect us. May it nourish us. May it guide us. May it give us strength and right understanding. May love and harmony be with us all. Om